Hey future managers, Professor Morell here. I'm excited to talk to you a little bit today about Chapter 8 on organizational design. Believe it or not, there's actually a lot of strategy that goes into the design of our organizations, and the way the organization functions is going to result in the organizational culture. So I want to take some time today just to kind of walk you through that a little bit and kind of talk about how some of these chapters really do kind of flow together into how we manage our team and how it all comes together in POLC, planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. So let's talk a little bit about organizational design. So really quick, I want to talk about a concept from Chapter 7, Strategy Chapter. So if you recall, the mission, vision, and values of an organization are directing all areas of the organization. So everything that an organization does are going to flow out of the mission, vision, and values. If an organization is ever doing something that doesn't relate to the mission, that means it's off focus, it's off task, and it needs to realign. And so that's something to kind of think about. So the way that we structure our organization is definitely going to vary as well. So that mission is going to kind of be the guiding, the aligning kind of symbol for us. And so sometimes as an organization grows, you know, the structure can just kind of grow organically, but it can cause the organization to get off kilter, the culture to get off kilter. So that's why taking time to really have a good understanding of the structure is really important for the organization. Pardon me, sign just fell off the shelf there. But it's really important for trying to kind of live out the organizational mission and to help us keep aligned so that we can lead organization effectively, and then also, you know, to keep our organization on track so that we can live out our planning objectives, right? So the structure is really important. So let's talk about the kinds of structures really quick, and then we'll talk about kind of what that might mean for the culture of the organization. Because as managers, our job is to really to shape a really healthy culture. We want people to come to work for our company and stay working for our company. All right, so the first thing I want to talk to you about is a functional structure. So there's pros and cons to functional structures. All right, so a functional structure is basically when you have an alignment based on the job function. So if you look at this one right here, let's say this could be marketing. All right, so this could be the marketing division here. You have all the marketing people for the company all working together, and they all answer to the head of marketing, and they all flow down into that marketing all together. So maybe you're we'll say a nationwide company, but you still have all the marketing people on one team. All right. The second silo would be another area. Perhaps this is finance. You have all of the finance people, again, working under one big finance head, and there's a pipeline under finance. And then it would go forward. Maybe this one is supply chain, operations, production, whatever word you want to use. And then you'd have your own kind of tower from there. And then this could be maybe human resources management, and from there on out, you know, maybe this is accounting through the finance and accounting department. A lot of different areas you can organize your company, but each function has their own individual organizational structure. That is a functional structure. Now, if you notice, each of these look kind of like chimneys, and so this is also called the chimney structure or a silo. If you guys think about, like, when you go to the country, you'll see a silo in the field. That's where this name kind of comes from. So the good thing is that if you are working in marketing, for example, and you start down at the bottom rung of marketing, there's going to be a kind of a clear line to the next step in the level. So if you think about that ladder to success, back Chapter 2, you know, with you know, bureaucracy, you know, you're going to see that ladder to success. You're going to say, okay, I'm junior marketing, then I'm a senior marketing, and then I'm an analyst, then I'm a senior analyst, and da-da-da-da-da. This is a clear kind of ascension ladder, but it's all within marketing. So that's a good thing, clear path. The other really good thing about this kind of a functional structure is that it keeps all of the information kind of contained. So if you are looking for the best marketing strategy around, you're going to have all the minds working together. They're all going to know each other, be working together, and they're all going to be able to come up with some really great marketing strategies. So you have a really great depth of knowledge when you have this functional structure. So if you're looking for a really deep knowledge, you know, this is a kind of a great way to organize. I've seen this be successful in engineering teams. Engineers a lot of times will just have really fantastic, really in-depth designs because they all get together at the meeting of their minds and collaborate and come up with some really complex, great ideas. So that's the good thing about a functional structure. Here's kind of the bad thing. This dotted little line here is kind of like a dividing line. Because you're working in marketing, you're organized according to marketing, you don't really know what's going on in the rest of the business. All right, there's no communication across functions. So you may be marketing a new product, but you may have no idea that the supply chain is struggling with fulfillment, and you're selling like crazy, but the supply chain said, we can't keep up, we can't get the parts from China. So that could be a real kind of an issue, and marketing may not have a good idea as to the design of the organization because they're not working with the design of the product because they're not working with the engineers. So there's a lack of communication when your teams aren't talking to each other, when they're not from multiple functions. And so it can kind of create a lot of issues. The other thing about a functional silo is if you have a problem down here in the organization, you have to then elevate this all the way up the ladder to the top of the organization, and then that person has to then go to the executive team over here to be able to get any sort of change done. So it really kind of makes change a little bit burdensome, a little bit difficult. It adds some layers to the process, can take a lot of time. So that's the bad things about the functional structure, pros and cons. But that is one definite way that an organization can be managed. I've worked in these kinds of organizations. Again, pros and cons to both. All right, so that's the functional structure. Let's keep rocking and rolling through. Second one I want to talk to you about is the divisional structure. So if you think of the functional structure is going like this, divisional structure goes like this. All right, so you kind of think of it, we're kind of building a little bit of almost like a grid, but a divisional structure is grouping people together based upon maybe a product, maybe a certain region that they're working in, or maybe the same customer base, whatever that may be. They have some sort of an aligning factor that keeps people from all different functions working together in a certain division. So, for example, if you're all working on the same product line, for example, so, I work for General Electric, we built steam turbines and generators, we would have a steam turbine team. And so, we would have engineers, we would have manufacturing, we'd have supply chain, we'd have a finance team, we'd have a marketing team, we'd have all of those people all together into one main divisional team for that product. All right, so our focus was how do we create the best product and get it out to the customer, and then it was a collaborative effort with all teams to do that. We had people from all different areas and meetings. So for example, I was in the supply chain side of the house, but I sat in engineering design meetings, not because I was an engineer, but because I could speak to them and they said, hey, we want to use this really, really fancy metal to on our new design. I'd be like, excuse me, there's only one place in the world that we can get this, and we can only get 10,000 pounds a year, and you're looking for me to get you 300,000 pounds a year. It's not going to happen. What else? What other ideas can you get? So you have to have that meeting in the mind, and so it really kind of creates a better kind of mix of products a higher level of product when all different levels are working together. So those are some of the pros. And based together on geographical region as well. Maybe it could be all the people that are at a certain site. Maybe it's everybody on the West Coast or the East Coast, whatever that may be. But you have some sort of an aligning factor a lot around everybody. So, but again, you're having people from all different functions involved in that division. All right, so again, pros and cons of the divisional structure. Some of the cons of the divisional structure is you don't necessarily know what other products the company is working in or what's going on at other divisions. So if one division is doing really, really great, you may not necessarily know about it and what their best practices are, or if one division is really, really struggling, you don't necessarily know about that. And, if they're struggling, you may not know, how you can help them or how that's going to impact you down the line as well. So there's not a lot of visibility outside of your division. So that's always an issue, but usually you see a lot better communication, a lot better cross-functionality at the divisional level. But you also don't necessarily get the depth as well. You don't necessarily have all your marketing people meeting together. You don't have that same depth of information. So, again, pros and cons to both. It is a little bit better to get things done from a divisional structure. So if I'm trying to get something done, for my product, I can meet with the team quickly, get it done. But it definitely can be more challenging for higher level items. All right, so that's the functional structure, divisional structure. Now I want to show you what we're seeing most commonly in a lot of different organizations, and that is the matrix structure. So if you think the functional structure is going vertically and the divisional structure is going horizontally, the matrix structure is both. It is both a functional structure and a divisional structure put together, and this is what's become common in a lot of big organizations today. They've kind of taken the best of both worlds from the functional side and the divisional side and married them together into the matrix structure. So big companies like Nike, for example, they're a matrix structure, and they're really just trying to kind of bring everything together. So basically what that looks like is, a bit of a matrix or a grid. So there's good and bad things about this. So if I'm here, okay, and say I'm You know, I have a background in supply chain. I love supply chain. You know, if I'm here working in my little supply chain manager role, and perhaps the manufacturing manager is my manager. In this scenario, it's probably backwards, but anyway. But the manufacturing manager is my manager, and then I also, so I'm helping him keep his operations going. But then on this side, I have a project manager who may be working for a project for a product. So with a matrix, you have not one team, but two teams that you're a part of at both. So you would kind of have two managers. But that can be great in that you can have really, really strong results reporting out through manufacturing, and you can also contribute towards the overall success of the project. That's a great thing, and it's a great thing for it to facilitate communication, to really good integration within teams, and you have more accountability as well because you're making sure that you're kind of keeping two managers happy. But here's the bad thing. You're keeping two managers happy. Sometimes these managers have conflicting issues, and that can be problematic. So we have to kind of think about what then do we do? Who do I answer to at the end of the day? You know, do I answer to my manufacturing manager or do I answer to my project manager? You know, you don't want to be stuck in the middle. It's a tough place to be. And that's the struggle with matrices is like, who do I answer to? The best way that I've found to answer this is you have to think about who's going to sign off my performance evaluation at the end of the year. That's kind of the question. And so you can maybe have a solid line manager, and then you also have a dotted line manager. So think about who is your solid line manager in that who is, you know, am I actually reporting to, and then who am I kind of helping out? So I've seen that happen. I've seen that be a really kind of a great kind of tiebreaker, if you will, when you have two kind of competing sets of demands for your time for only one person, but this very easily could turn into a situation where you're doing full-time jobs if you're not managing this correctly and don't have good communication with between your managers and yourself as to their expectations. But overall, this is really seen as a popular design for large organizations. You know, if you're working, you know, at a certain site location, you would have your site team. And then if you're working on a certain project on that team, you'd work with that project team. It's a great way to kind of build your network, get to know a lot of people, and it's really kind of a great way to kind of build that collaborative culture as well. So I've seen the matrix structure be pretty collaborative culture-wise as well. So, you know, the functional structure can definitely lead to, you know, your team doesn't understand my team, and I don't know what you do over there, because they don't know, because there's that silo structure with the functional side. The divisional side means I don't really care what's going on with that other site. The matrix brings everybody together so that everybody kind of cares about the overall bringing up of the organization so everybody can be successful. So that's a little bit of the matrix structure. And it's great for organizing larger businesses as well. All right, so not every business is a larger business, and there's different kinds of organizational designs that are out there. So let me just kind of share a couple more with you, and then we'll wrap up. This is the team structure. So the team structure is kind of great if you have a short-term team that's maybe coming up or a certain project that's going to be kind of moving through. It's a great way to kind of take a problem and solve it, or take on a project and get that taken care of. But it's really trying to kind of bring people together for a certain period of time to complete a task, and then they kind of go up from there. Now, there are some organizations that are team structures. So smaller organizations, startups, for example, you see that team structure a lot in a startup where everybody's kind of has a lot of responsibility underneath them. They're trying to kind of get the product up and launched. But you'll also see this in larger organizations for like a special project also. So for example, what that kind of looks like is you'll maybe pull in a bunch of people. Maybe you're, you know, managing your own team down here. But you would maybe all get together and say, hey, let's get together and develop this new product. Or let's get together and do a diversity task force, and you have a special kind of side project. There's no real kind of structure as to who reports to who, or, you know, different kinds of leaders. You're all just collaborating as a team to get the effort done. It's a great way to solve problems, great way to get projects done. But you want to have that diversity of membership. You want to have people from different backgrounds, manufacturing, HR, engineering, sales, whatever it may be, collaborating together to kind of get results done and get it done quickly. So it's a great way to kind of facilitate communication also. And I also think just to continue to build the culture, right? So, you know, you'd be like, oh, I worked on a team project with that person a couple of years ago. Hey, how are you doing? I haven't seen you in a while. It's a great way to kind of build camaraderie, build relationships, networks, etc. So team structures are great. You see them a lot in smaller organizations, but the functional structures, the divisional structures, the major structures all kind of happen when these team structures spread from the startup, right? And so it really is kind of a conscious choice when we sit back. I mean, Organizations, especially big ones, love their reorgs. They love to reshift how everybody's sitting, whatever, because it does have an impact on the culture and how people are interacting, etc. If I see that two teams aren't interacting and should be, that's a sign for me that I probably need to think about, how my organization is structured. And so a lot of times for startups, they'll start with this team structure and they'll just grow like crazy, and the structure hasn't kept up. So a good manager is going to kind of keep his thumb on to, are we operating in a functional structure? Should we be? Should we move into a matrix? Do we need a special team project, to go over and handle this? So those are the kinds of things to kind of think about. One of the last big elements I want to share with you is organizational design. So I want you to know the difference between a tall structure and a flat structure. So a tall structure means that maybe there's like a lot of different levels of supervision, but not a lot of people underneath of them. So it's a narrow span of control. So you might say, if you're here, I have 2 managers working underneath of me, but only four people total. So you have 2 direct reports, but overall you have 6 people working for you. So it's a lot of levels that kind of go on. And so this is you kind of create a disconnect here between your lower level function, but this can definitely be kind of a little bit of a way to organize your teams a little bit, so you can think about that. So it kind of creates a little bit of division. If you're here and you want to get something done, you have an extra person that's kind of in the middle before you can get to the decision maker. So from a communication perspective, a tall structure can kind of slow down communication a little bit. So there's pros and cons to that. And it also kind of means like this is a little bit more of a supervisor position, that you're kind of keeping an eye on these people a little more. Right? Your job is to kind of manage those people. So for myself, when I see a tall structure with not a lot of people underneath of it, I think this might be an environment where there might be some micromanagement. When you have a lot of managers and not a lot of workers, they might be kind of keeping a close eye on things. It signifies to me, and again, I'm not saying this is right or wrong. This is just me sharing my experience with you. Then maybe there might be a lack of trust when you see an overly tall structure. Now, don't get me wrong, when you get to big companies, you're definitely going to see tall structures and lots of different levels. You completely will. But it's just an interesting kind of thing. I always, if I were to go in an organization and was doing a culture study on them, I'd be like, can I see an org chart and just see kind of, is it a tall structure or is it a flat structure? Now let's talk about a flat structure really quick. A flat structure has fewer levels. So maybe you have one manager and then just everybody beneath of you. And you see, this is how a lot of startups start. And this kind of happens, tall structure, as you grow. So your organizational size is part of this. But a flat structure basically says, listen, I don't have time to keep an eye on everybody, but you're in charge of your area, and so I'm trusting you to get the job done because I'm managing a lot of people. And so it literally signifies trust. You're in charge. You got this. And so go and run with it. So it gives everybody kind of more autonomy, if you will, just by the structure of the organization, that flat structure. So that may be good for senior level employees, but what if you have a bunch of interns that are right out of school that maybe need somebody to kind of help them, to mentor them, to train them on their job? Then this kind of a structure might make more sense. If you have 2 interns, you want an employee to be able to kind of guide them along the way before they get to the manager. So again, you have to look at the experience level of your employees. There's a lot of different things you have to kind of think about when you're designing your organization. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. So, but make sure you know the difference between a tall structure, more levels, narrow span of control, versus a flat structure, which are fewer levels, and you kind of have a wider span of control. So what I'm trying to kind of put this all together for you is like how you design your structure is really telling of empowerment. So empowerment is defined as a way of unlocking talent and motivation so that people can act in ways that make a performance difference. We're trying to give our people every opportunity to be able to be a top performer, and the structure is really can either help or inhibit that. And so depending on what your organization mission is, your visions, your values, your plans, your objectives, your goals, how you organize is really can either help or hinder that process. But overall, in today's world, we need to be thinking about how we can empower our workers. How can we help our employees to feel like, hey, listen, I feel comfortable in my role, I have autonomy in my role, I know how to make my own decisions in my job, and I have freedom about how I work. If I have an idea or something needs to change, I know that I can talk to somebody and get change quickly. I'm not going to be stuck going through 10 layers of approval, and so we really need to kind of prepare our people to be able to work autonomously and delegate work, which is literally giving them trust when you delegate, saying, I'm trusting you to get this done. kind of like what a flat structure would do, that's going to lead to an empowered workforce. And empowered employees are the ones that are going to be the best performers. They're going to be the ones that are going to want to go above and beyond. They're going to be the ones that are going to help you not only meet but exceed your goals and objectives as your organization. And so that's only going to make it easier for you to lead and control your team. So for that being said, that's a little bit about organizational structure and design. Thank you so much.